Hello again, my name is Ellen O'Neill.
Ben Butler.
Crystal Knopf.
Eric McCorkle.
And we are here for the Weber State OC Tanner case today.
Did you turn it on?
Why not?
It's on. There we go.
Here we go. All right, so everyone has that moment that they remember receiving a gift that's really identified their appreciation and recognition for a certain task. Mine was a whistle. And while a whistle means nothing to a random person on the street, in high school, working at a water park, receiving that whistle at 6 months really meant to me that I was recognized my work ethic, that was beyond that of the average person. And really that was a big moment for me because in high school that set the tone for the rest of my business career. And that's what OC Tanner wants to do. They want to identify the greatness of each individual to propel them and engage them further to be a more productive and better company. Which, go ahead, and that just has to do with the mission statement. So as we just talked about our mission statement, we're going to go through our strategic country analysis using these tools here. We're going to go through our ideal supplier analysis because obviously it's not just the country, we want to make sure we have the right supplier. And then we're going to go through our supplier selection.
All right, so I'm going to start us off with our country analysis. And first, here are just the risks listed that OC Tanner sees. We see when outsourcing to other countries such as China. So here we're going to start with our SWOT analyses. We have it for 3 different regions, domestic, China, and Southeast Asia. So here is for our domestic. Some of our strengths we have are high quality products. We have low distribution costs as we distribute to North America. Access to quality information. United States, we're highly regulated, so we're not trying to hide any of the numbers or our profits. In the weaknesses, we see more expensive labor costs, a minimal supplier variety, opportunities, technology innovation, and threats, limited production capacity, material price fluctuation. So those are just kind of the highlights for the domestic SWOT analysis. And then onto the China SWOT analysis, we kind of see a little bit of a flip on the strengths and weaknesses compared to the domestic SWOT analysis. For example, we see low labor costs in the strengths, increased productivity and flexibility in China. And then also in weaknesses, we see rapidly increasing wages. Like we said, in the labor cost is a little bit lower than the domestic, but we kind of see that more increasing to match the domestic labor cost. In addition to the weaknesses, we see high distribution costs if we're distributing to North America. Longer lead times kind of adds into that as well. Opportunities is the China +1 investment strategy. So again, that kind of talks more into another one of our SWOT analysis with the Southeast Asia region. So we'll talk about that after. But just being able to branch out past China as well and increasing consumer markets. And threats, we have geopolitical tension, freight contract hard to enforce. So you'll also see we have currency manipulation in both the strengths and the threats. So we put currency manipulation as a strength for China because they can really manipulate their currency to work to their advantage to make them seem more profitable with their buyers. But also we see it as a threat because if their buyers do catch on to that manipulation, that could hurt their reputation in the long run. So next we have the SWOT analysis for Southeast Asia. So again, it's an emerging manufacturing country, low labor costs. As China is increasing their labor costs, we really see that this is a strength for Southeast Asia because they definitely are lower than China right now. And then weaknesses, Southeast Asia doesn't really have the education, the training, the background in manufacturing. So limited manufacturing flexibility, limited training adds on to that, and education, which can ultimately lead to more defects in the long run as well. Opportunities, we definitely see supplier development. If as you haven't been there for that long, there's definitely time for improvement as well. And threats, political instability, and this region is definitely known for more natural disasters as well.
So moving on to our scorecard, you can see what we really highlighted was lead time as well as unit price and overall quality. And the reason for that is we really learned that OC Tanner meets their demands and they have very high demanding customers, right? So they order something and they want it there right away, so they can really recognize their employees for their good work. So for here we have lead time, and for obvious reasons, lead time is much lower in the United States, whereas China and Southeast Asia, it's going to be much longer. Overall quality is really important. We want to make sure that we're getting our great price, but we're also getting great quality. So we want to make sure that that was really important too. And a great example of that was the Pepsi bottle that we were shown the other day at OC Tanner. And then unit price. Again, we want to make sure that we can deliver the best quality for that price. We want to make sure that we're obviously making profit from that business relationship as well. And really, in looking at these three over here, we want to highlight the fact that what can combat this importance of lead time is great forecasting. So it really depends on how the quality of our forecasting and the data that we have for that forecasting that can really combat that lead time that's really important to meet our customers' demands.
So the next analysis that we conducted was a fortified forces analysis for OC Tanner, especially within the private label brand that we're trying to source right now. This is really important for us to know where we stand in the market so that we can identify a sourcing strategy for supplier selection that maintains our customer focus and lets us deliver value to the customer. We're going to start on the right and move our way back to supplier. Buyer power we assessed as medium just because we do have the ability to lock in our customers with contracts, keeping buyer power low, keeping buyer power low, relatively moderate, but also with the ability, buyers aren't necessarily buying huge amounts of product to leverage huge economies of scale, so they're not able to call upon us to really drive the price down. Threat of substitution we assessed as medium, just because there are some other competitors within the industry, such as Fina, ITA Group, that can offer similar private label products that are kind of low complex, relatively generic. Threat of new entrants, though, into this market we assessed as low because it is such a niche market and you don't see a lot of players. But that leads us into supplier power. Our ideal supplier has a low power with us because there are a lot of manufacturers that can do kind of the same thing, since these are private label, relatively generic, low complex products. Low switching costs because we don't have to invest a lot in their infrastructure because they are relatively low complexity products. So the key takeaway from this slide, though, is that we want to select a supplier that allows us to maintain our customer focusing philosophy at OC Tanner, allows us to drive value.
For the next graph that we use the risk heat map. These are the 9 risks on the left side, and the graph pretty much shows the impact of the product based on the risk of occurrence. Just to highlight a couple of these, supplier management costs, that's one of them. Time zone is going to be a pretty big factor, so that's number 1. So the risk of occurrence is, it's probably going to happen a lot. You're going to have a lot of meetings trying to integrate your system. But the impact of that is kind of moderate. It kind of varies. You just have to make sure that you have a well thought out system. For SNOP and CPRF, we said that impact would be high and the risk of occurrence kind of low. We said because you just need to have a good forecasting for that, just so that if you do mess up on forecasting, that will have a very significant impact on your business. But the risk of that occurring, you just need to make sure that you're evaluating all the options that you have. Just to go through a couple of those, quality control, we said the impact of that would be kind of high. Risk of occurrence kind of high. That just has to do with how much training you're doing with your employees. What's the total impact? What's the defect cost, and how much that is going to weigh into your total price. Just to go down to the bottom, The opportunity costs, we said that the impacts could be high, but the risk of the occurrence is low. It's kind of like the CNOP, CPRF. We said that you just need to make sure that you're evaluating all your options before you go in, and make sure that the supplier you pick is the one that you really want. And making sure that cost, lead time, and quality are all the main things that you're trying to hit. For our financial analysis, we kind of grouped the products into the 4 brands that they had. We had Epoch, Mubi, Topi, and Volio. As you can see at the bottom, the total cost per unit is significantly lower in China compared to the United States. If you want to go to the next slide. So these are the total differences in each brand. So as you can see, they have around like 45, 40 kind of percent change in total cost per unit. So this shows that China has like a 40% increase, but these kind of vary based on the forecasting we had. We talked to Gordon, who was one of the employees at WSU Tanner, and he said that Epoch had the best forecasting just because the other ones have only been in the market for such little time, about a year or so.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so taking into account all these analyses that we just did, we put together some framework, kind of heuristic on how we want to go about identifying suppliers and selecting them. So these are kind of the qualities that we're looking for in a supplier once we do identify them, and if they meet these, this would be an ideal supplier for WSU Tanner. Along the left, we have categories, and along the top, we have how important it is to us as a business within the private label brand. So with integrity trust, obviously we want very high degree of integrity and trust between our supplier and WSU Tanner because that is our brand. It also allows for much healthier supplier relationship. Sharing our business strategies with private label brands where we're sourcing relatively generic things and we can switch from manufacturers relatively easy. Want to keep it a little bit minimal so that they're not really in those discussions. Level of communication, though, we definitely want very high, especially if we're going to be utilizing some international suppliers. This will help reduce a lot of the risks that Ben was just talking about on the previous slides, such as supplier management risks and incurring costs of substandard suppliers, just because we can keep an eye on them a little bit more closely. Risk sharing, we would like to keep it to a minimum just because we want to limit our exposure because it isn't such a high value product. Impact on customer sales, though, we want to be medium high. Regards to technology, relatively low because as I've mentioned and as we've been saying, these are relatively generic products that don't necessarily have very high costs of tooling and setup costs. And then supplier requirements, experience with OC Tanner is definitely a plus, but not an imperative, just because it would be a plus because they understand our culture and our philosophy towards quality and meeting customer expectations. Next, this matrix kind of, you see along the y-axis, buyer strength versus supplier strength. We definitely want to be very dominant as a buyer in this versus letting the supplier negotiate a lot of the relationship.
And then for supplier contracts, we're going to be dealing with a lot of international contracts with China if we decide to go over there. So we definitely want to make sure that our global risk is minimized with certain contracts. We also want to use a forward exchange contract. This will help reduce the currency manipulation. So if the Chinese yuan increases, we can utilize a call option, and we can still buy at that premium price for the yuan, and it decreases the amount of risk with that. And then we also want to use FOB in shipping. This is the most common one, and it minimizes the risk on our side because it decreases the amount of damages, defects, and other lost items.
So now we're going to move to strategic sourcing selection. we can go to the next slide. So we decided that because EPOC has been around longer, Gordon mentioned that a lot of the forecasting, which is that suppliers find very impressive, is because of the historical data. So we have the historical data necessary to have EPOC go international so we can really get the best price by going to China. And then we want to source domestically for these three. Of course, this is a temporary solution. We really want to make sure that we have the forecasting necessary so that we can make sure that we're meeting our customer demands. And once we have the proper forecasting due to a longer lifespan of these brands, we want to move them abroad with EPOC as well. So in conclusion, again, we really wanted to highlight that OC Tanner is about greatness. It's about recognizing greatness in individuals. I wanted to make sure that the choice that we made really met the needs of our customers so they can properly recognize their employees with whether it's a whistle or an emblem or a watch. We want to make sure that those individuals are recognized to better improve their culture and environment. And now we'll take questions.
Just find something you can go back to.
We can do that.
Sure.
Kind of quick. Can you step back a little bit? Some of the data analysis numbers.
Okay, like these?
That's the one.
Oh, just so small on the sheets.
Shipping costs there, the U.S. versus China?
Yeah, so the reason we did that is because we were determining primarily international. We didn't have a lot of data in general, so we wanted to make sure that we used the data we had. So the international shipping costs are primarily what we found for a less than container load coming ocean freight from Hong Kong. And so since we're strictly looking at international for this aspect, that's why we don't have anything for the USA. Does that answer your question?
Oh, okay, yeah. So international shipping costs.
Yes.
You do have a cost there, but you're not. You have no U.S. international.
Yes, and that's purely because of lack of data, so we want to make sure we can make it as comparable as possible.
But in your recommendation to put these brands as domestic brands, wouldn't there need to be a shipping cost in there?
Yeah, absolutely. And there would be as well for China, depending on what port that would come in. So the reason, again, we didn't have enough data to calculate that. So because we need that for both, not just USA, we decided that that would be the most comparable to look at the international because we didn't have the data, and it would still be necessary for both, depending on what port. And again, we didn't have that data either. So wherever Hong Kong came into, that would need shipping costs as well.
And you're incorrect or late orders?
That was based off in the case. There was a sample.
Yeah, that was cloud sample. They had 0.05 as their incorrect / late orders. So that was one incident where it was a air freight only. So that's like a one-time occurrence.
And of course, when you look at when you get a supplier, you'll have to look at their defects to determine that more specifically. But because this is general, we wanted to use the data that we did have.
So the recommendation to go with EPOC or EPIC is primarily due to the longevity of the forecasting model, that you have better history.
Yes, and it's because when we went to OC Tanner, what we realized is that their customers, they don't give a lot of notice for a lot of things they want. They want them very soon. That's something that OC Tanner prides itself in, is really meeting their customers' needs and being flexible. So we felt like that was going to be the most important. But definitely, again, long term, all of these would go to China once we feel like we can still meet our customers' needs and not jeopardize that.
So your sourcing decision is to basically keep the EPOC product coming from China and do more domestic sourcing for those three. So your decision is to keep things as they are?
Yeah, primarily. So, again, for those three, they've only been brands for like less than a year, I believe is what the case said.
Yeah.
Around a year. So it's because we want to make sure that that lead time doesn't get in the way of forecasting, because obviously that creates complexity and lack of flexibility. But again, Gordon really mentioned the fact that suppliers are really impressed by the forecasting capabilities of OC Tanner. So once we feel like that is up to par, then really that lead time is not as much of an issue, and we can really mitigate that risk.
So more the maturity of the product rather than the sourcing of the product?
Yes.
Yes. So it's to make sure that we have better forecasting and we go into it making sure that the price point is correct, because if you go to the next slide, as you see, like these changes of total cost per unit can vary very dramatically if we only have a year of data. So it could be 50% or it could be 10%. So we want to make sure that we're getting the right price point across, so that we are getting a profit and adding value to the product as well.
For
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say an example of that would be stockouts, right? So if you don't have a good forecast, you have a lot of stockouts, that would obviously change the pricing here. We just use the general what we have been given, but that would really change per supplier and given the forecasting data.
Right, cost of stock.
You're just not saying, no, we're not going to do it, this is not now.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
It was mentioned when we were on site that OC Tanner really values flexibility, quality, and so when we can ensure those based on historical data, then we can worry about price.
And stock out.
Yes.
That's a critical element.
Absolutely.
So we definitely do see the value of sourcing from China, just maybe not this timing right now.
Major affect their short-term service level.
There's a lot of policies and other things that are factors in that as well.
So these early evaluations that you did, the SWOT analysis and some of the others, how did that play into your quantitative analysis?
So for China or for the domestic, or just for
Oh,
all?
for your solution, you know, you talk of the, ordered by forces, the scorecard. How did you roll that into the quantitative analysis that you did?
Here, go back.
Yeah.
That slide there?
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah, I think this kind of points out like our main qualities. As you see, like the U.S. has the highest score, so normally you would go with the United States as it does have the highest score. So that's why we did decide to keep Epoch and like wait on the other brands, because as you see, China isn't far behind from that. So that's how we did see the value in China. And we didn't want to eliminate it completely, but just we kind of had to go with the U.S. just seeing that it's high score, and we kind of got these criteria also from like our SWOT analysis and deciding on those weights, the case and deciding on those those weights, what was the most important to OC Tanner.
And again, as I mentioned, overall quality, it's really hard to identify overall quality when we don't have specific suppliers, because you can't really compare a really not great supplier in the U.S. to a really great supplier abroad. So it's really going to depend on the supplier, but we felt since we needed to generalize, this was the best estimate we wanted to get. But these are mostly from, again, our visit from OC Tanner and understanding what's important to OC Tanner, as well as from the case. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's very good use of it.
And your own SWOT analysis, develop those meetings.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
What's your recommendation going forward as far as a continuing evaluation of this? What are some of the primary factors? How often would you evaluate?
I mean, I'd say
What would be the recommendation?
you probably evaluate every year, just to get better forecasting. That gives you more, lets you see the seasonality of a product, see the fluctuation of it, so it will decrease the shipping and inventory costs. I'd say another thing it would be to integrate your system. Better communication is another thing. So you can increase the overall quality, the manufacturing capability. So like on the scorecard, as you see, like over time, these numbers can vary so that maybe the United States decreases their overall quality, but China increases another one. So those can vary, and I think it's best if you do it by year so that you figure out your seasonality and what the product is going to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd also suggest, they obviously OC Tanner does currently have some suppliers abroad. Having that data would be great because we would better be able to understand, what relationships we have, the quality that they can provide. Having some more data would really help as well in terms of, looking at should we go over along with that forecasting data. And again, yearly would be ideal, and keeping communication open with that forecasting team and understanding that their goal is once they feel at a point where it's met with the other brands that are known for good quality forecasting, that's when that would be ready to go international.
Do you feel like there are any risks associated with just changing from one source to another? And maybe this is just with OC Tanner and what they do, but if you get into a contract with a supplier, you're kind of locked in for a certain volume or a certain time period. Could you possibly lose out on the benefits of China at that point?
That was 10 minutes of questions, but since they didn't use it full time, why don't you answer that question?
If you go to
Maybe
the
one
next-
final, and then we're done.
This is the call for what?
So this was 10 minutes of Q&A.
Oh, now.
Right, well, yeah, so, but they didn't use their entire time for
Yeah.
the presentation, so.
3 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, so go to the next slide. Next one again. So as you see, number 7, the cost of substandard suppliers. So like you may go into something thinking that the quality will be good. So like as here it says, the impact can be pretty high because you can go into sourcing thinking that the material will be all right, or they're going to be using the same mold every single time for something. It said in the case that they switched one of the molds and it went from 100% non-defect rate to 66%. So that can definitely be a big factor. Just making sure that you're integrating your system with them. And it said that it's very hard for, I think one of the things was it's hard for China to share information. I think like you're just going to have to like create a contract with that and make sure that you're receiving those forecasting and making sure that there's not a lot of stock out, and making sure that the quality and the materials that you're getting are up top.
Right, you want a collaborative relationship, and then you also, in the contract, because we know we don't want to stay in the U.S. for an extremely long period of time, that would obviously be in the contract, and we, obviously have an idea of, okay, I'm going to be in this for a year, I'm going to be in this for 2 years, and reach a certain volume. Because we know that ahead of time, we can put that in the contract and be open with the suppliers about that.
But you don't worry about supplier relations in that respect. You go into a contract with a supplier and you're saying, okay, we're only going to do this for 2 years and then we're out. Would that potentially cause problems with that supplier and their willingness to provide a high quality product for you, and their willingness to work with you? Is there a risk in that?
Well, I definitely think it's not like a 2 and we're done. I mean, obviously, if they can change the things from the scorecard, they can have higher quality, if they can get better pricing, and obviously that's where we want to be. But in this industry and in the products that we looked at, it's pretty transactional. So as long as you're keeping the communication open and willing to be flexible, then that's definitely something that I want to do. Again, does that answer your question?
I think also too, we talked a little bit about our ideal supplier. So before picking our supplier, seeing if they have a potential to meet our ideal supplier qualities up here, and just kind of working with them to achieve that ideal supplier.
I might have missed it, but what team are we talking about?
Alta.
Alta, okay, thank you.
Definitely have answered that question.
John?
Yeah.
Good.
Awesome.